Israel's emergency services respond to a mock biochemical attack. In the event of a US-led war on Iraq, the assumption here is that Baghdad will attack the Jewish state. Israel's preparing for the worst-case scenario, chemical and biological warfare. The preparations are accompanied by a sense of optimism among some Israeli leaders. To policymakers like Foreign Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, removing Saddam Hussein could transform Iraq from an enemy into a tolerant neighbor.
I think in Washington people understand that it's not enough to bring down the regime. You have to induce societal change. Now, that's a much more complicated effort here because these are different societies, different histories, different cultures, and nevertheless it has to be done. And therefore, if Saddam is indeed removed, there will be an effort to democratize, I use the word democratize, Iraq. We cannot assume that it'll be a fully fledged democracy in the Western sense, but it can be democratized.
In the Arab world, the democratization of Iraq is seen as a euphemism for American imperialism. The Egyptian government's a close ally of the United States, but many Arab leaders fear that a US-led war on Iraq will destabilize the entire region. At the Arab League headquarters in Cairo, they're trying to find a way of avoiding what they consider would be a disastrous war. If it does happen, say Arab leaders, a continuing American military presence in Iraq would be unacceptable.
We hate a foreign military occupation. Whenever it comes, wherever it comes from, wherever it is. The foreign military occupation by Israel of the Palestinian territories continue to plague the stability of this region. And there is no way out of it. We cannot accept foreign military occupation. So you think that we can live with another military occupation? And why? Why should there be another military occupation? To do what? To create a new Middle East through military occupation in the 21st century? There are a lot of other avenues for that, a lot of other ways and means to introduce whatever ideas, to discuss with us, to move the Middle East into a new era through discussion, through cooperation, through right partnership.
In the West Bank and Gaza, Palestinians see the United States' current policy towards Iraq as a reflection of its attitude to them, yet more evidence of Washington's double standards in the Middle East. For the past 36 years, Israel has defied a UN resolution stating that it should return all occupied territories to the Palestinian people. The Palestinians believe that the Americans could have forced Israel's compliance. Bassam Abou Sharif is a close confidant of Yasser Arafat. He was severely wounded by the Israelis 30 years ago. Sharif believes President Bush should be tougher on Israel, and he views Washington's justification for war against Iraq with deep suspicion.
What Bush is doing to Iraq right now is actually very ridiculously clear. Bush wants the oil. That's it. To claim about the democracy in Iraq and the mass destructive weapons, it's really ridiculous because here you are in Israel. They have more than 100 nuclear heads. Nobody is opening a mouth about it.
Sharif says the Americans want to do to Iraq what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians. And he believes US action will make the Middle East more, not less, volatile.
If these people who are making clones could be reached, I would beg them not to make a clone of Bush. He is about to destroy the world. And that's very sad, ridiculous action. The Iraqis will fight him back. He will destroy the interest of the United States, and he will never get the oil under his full grip to serve his Texan oil companies. That will never happen.
Many Israelis remember the trauma of the Gulf War 12 years ago. More than 30 Iraqi Scud rockets struck Tel Aviv and other cities. Although Washington has ensured Israel's defense system is now far more advanced, Saddam Hussein's military arsenal is still regarded as a potent threat. Neutralizing the possibility of biochemical attack is a real concern.
You have to not only fight a particular terrorist group, you have to go after the regimes really, and you have to begin the process of democratization, which is also fraught with risks. But the risk of not doing it is that you'll get a new Taliban, a new Saddam Hussein, a new bin Laden sooner or later, and they will get those weapons sooner or later.
Washington and its allies argue that a change of regime in Iraq would benefit everyone. But many Arab leaders believe that forcibly removing Saddam Hussein could cause more acts of terror around the world.
This cannot be achieved through pressure or through designs from abroad. It has to emerge from within. The idea of a change is a good idea. It should not be tarnished by the notion that it is ordered, it is imposed, and it will be done whether you accept it or not. This kind of attitude, kind of policy will not succeed. In fact, it adds a lot of negative elements to the notion or the concept of change.
Arab leaders also fear another exodus of refugees, as happened during the last war against Saddam Hussein. What would the Americans do about that? One option would be to imitate the Marshall Plan that helped reconstruct Europe after the Second World War. But Amr Moussa believes it's best not to cause the exodus in the first place.
You remember the Marshall Plan? It came after total destruction. Is it the proposition you are making, that there will be total destruction of Iraq and total destruction of the Arab world, and then the Marshall Plan comes to save them? Is this the proposition you are offering? First of all, why the destruction in the first place? Why? Had there been a dialogue and a kind of give and take the Arab countries as real partners, there could have been a very useful discussion, a very useful strategy to agree on the future of this region.
The Arab world has seen numerous foreign empires come and go. They've left scars and bitter memories. So many Arabs try to take the long-term view that whatever the Americans do, it'll eventually pass into the troubled history of the Middle East.
The Arab nation is a civilized nation, is a nation that is deeply rooted in civilization. The United States is 250 years old, probably, only. Baghdad is 1,200 years old. He should remember this.
The Israelis remember their history. So they prepare for a conflict while hoping that it will increase the prospects for a lasting peace. But Arab leaders feel that the shockwaves of war will reverberate throughout the region and could bring disaster.